News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the news today. Iraq's army has declared victory over the Islamic State in Ramadi, but according to one military commander, pockets of resistance remain in about 30% of the city. The recapture of the capital of Anbar province would hand the IS perhaps its biggest setback since it rose to prominence in 2014. I-24 News defense correspondent Shah Ben-Ari has the details.
Rare scenes of celebration in Iraq. Television cameras focused on the Iraqi flag Monday as it was again flown from atop a government building in the devastated city of Ramadi, more than 7 months after the capital of Anbar province was overrun by Islamic State terrorists.
Yes, the city of Ramadi has been liberated. Iraqi counterterrorism forces have raised the Iraqi flag over the government complex in Anbar to raise the name of the country and write down a new date because we have defended our dignity and our lands.
A dramatic and important statement, but a premature one nonetheless. While Ramadi's central government compound was indeed taken by the military Monday morning, the commander of Iraq's regional operations later clarified that IS maintains a presence in about 30% of the city, with fighting ongoing in at least one central neighborhood, as well as several surrounding villages.
We will liberate all our captured cities, God willing, just as we have liberated Jurf al-Nasr, Amerli, Diluya, Tikrit, and Baiji.
An eventual complete liberation of Ramadi would be the most significant victory for the Iraqi army so far in its fight against IS. The current operation began in early November, and some, including high-ranking American officials, had expressed frustration at the slow progress. One reason for this was Baghdad's unwillingness to use powerful Shiite militias at its disposal so as to avoid sectarian violence in predominantly Sunni Anbar. Sunni tribal fighters are playing a major role in the current operation, a factor which is seen as key to driving the Islamic State out of Iraq.
And with me right now is Eliezer Tzafrir, former head of Mossad stations in Kurdistan, Iraq, Iran, and Lebanon, and former advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister on Arab affairs. Good evening.
Shalom.
And also Ali Waqid, senior Middle East analyst.
Good evening, Lucy.
Good evening. I will start with you, Mr. Tzafrir. And, you know, the question is how this, let's say, victory, so-called victory, will be maybe a landmark to going back or trying to go back to normality in Iraq?
I wouldn't say it's going back to normality. It's a victory. You can't forget it. Together with the former victory of the Kurdish Peshmerga taking Sinjar, it is a real advancement against the IS. But still, we have still to wait. Information says that even Ramadi is not all of it in the hands of the Iraqi army. But still, it's a good progress towards the continuation of the effort of the whole world to throw away Daesh, IS.
Today's victory is, let's say, a continuing strategy, or let's say continuing line of the setback that IS is experiencing in the last few months, maybe, or in the last few days. And the fact is that IS is, let's say, decreasing in its power. Is it some kind of, or losing ground, is it some kind of a, let's say, some kind of a sign for the future? Or we can say that IS is still strong, the fight is not over, or maybe Russia intervening so much in the fight is starting to put a brighter picture.
Yeah, there is no doubt that a momentum started with the intervention of Russia, both on the political level, but also on the military level. De facto, Lucy, since the Russian intervention, the Islamic State made almost no advancement, no progression on the ground, whether it is we were speaking about Iraq or about Syria. During the 1 year or 13 months of the so-called anti-Islamic State Western coalition, the Islamic State did not cease to progress in Syria and in Iraq, and the Russian intervention obliged all the parties to recalculate their steps. Those who flirted with the Islamic State, those who thought that the Islamic State can be an actor against the regime of Bashar Assad and against Iran, are now recalculating their measures. It happened that since the September, the Russians targeted the sources of financement of the Islamic State. So did the American later. Plus, in the Arab countries, for example, the intelligence report of the Germans who accused Saudi Arabia to directly finance and orchestrate some of the operation of Islamic State, pushed the Saudis to declare their own military anti-Islamic State coalition. And inside the Arab and Muslim countries, there are systems more significant in trying to dry the sources in which Islamic State recruited their militants to come to Iraq and Syria.
Let's start looking at the, let's say, bigger picture at this specific issue, specifically in Iraq. Tom Harb is joining us, Chairman of American Middle East Coalition for Democracy. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Good evening.
So, Mr. Harb, we saw what happened to Iraq after the United States left it maybe to the hands of IS, to this vacuum that was created and maybe made IS grow up to be what it is right now. What I'm asking myself is, okay, right now we're seeing some kind of a victory for Iraq, for the Iraqi troops. Just the images that are coming out of Iraq, the images that are coming out from the Middle East are just total destruction. And I ask myself, okay, after all the world is saying, wow, this is amazing, if the world will join hands and won't leave Iraq again to the nothing that they left it the last time.
Well, from our perspective here in the West and in the United States, still there is no strategy and policy by the U.S. administration how to liberate Iraq from ISIS and who to give it to. There is no political solution has been given and shared between the Sunnis north of Baghdad all the way to the Mosul area and in the central government of Baghdad. Any occupation today in Ramadi by the central government, we will consider an Iranian occupation at the present time. It's not a solution by the locals over there unless a political agreement has been reached. But we don't know if any political agreement has been reached by the locals by the locals in the Anbar region. Therefore, in any control or any takeover by the army of Baghdad for municipality buildings inside Ramadi, this is not a full control of the Ramadi or the Al-Anbar area. So we don't know yet. We are going to wait another 48 hours, 72 hours to see the results if what they claim to be a victory and or the Pentagon over here wants a victory somehow, but there is no policy.
Mr. Harb, from your opinion, from your point of view, how do you think the Iraqi government will look like in the future?
Well, under the Western administrations, either in Europe or United States, they have not put together a coalition on the ground to see what would happen. Under the previous administration, the Bush administration, they had some kind of an understanding. But after Iran took control of Baghdad and the central government, everything went to sideways. And after the Obama administration gave in to the Iranian and with the nuclear deal and the 150 billions, we still don't know it's we are going to be waiting another year till we find out how all of this is going to play, especially after an election. We're coming into an election here in the United States.
Yes, Mr. Tom Harb, you are going to stay with us also for the for our subject about for our discussion about Syria. But just before that, you wanted to comment on something.
Lucy, I don't know if we are now in the eve of the beginning of the defeat of the Islamic State, but there is no doubt for the first time we can say that the Islamic State is on the defensive. The Islamic State is facing huge pressure both on the political, social, when some Sunni tribes, Iraqi Sunni tribes in the region of Ramadi participate side by side with the Iraqi official troops that accepted to give a marginalized role to the Shiite backed by Iran militias that participated in the fights with the Iraqi army. This gives us some hope that there is some change in the attitude of the Iraqi government and also in the thoughts and beliefs of the Sunni tribes vis-a-vis the Islamic State, because taking this support from the Islamic State is a sign of weakening the Islamic State.
Yeah,
this is important what you say, looking over the whole picture. I think we have to bear in mind 2 points, 2 major points. One of them, this victory of the Iraqi Shiite army, backed by Shiite Iran, is not very productive when speaking about the conflict between the Shia and the Sunni, with the majority of the Sunni countries. Nobody knows yet what will be in the future. The second point, in my opinion, Mr. Harb said that the United States didn't give herself an account for the picture of the future. In my opinion, neither Syria nor Iraq will not come back to what it was before. I mean, it is a different story. Syria will change. Bashar Assad, together with the Russians, is trying to have as much as possible a bigger part of Syria to the future Alawite autonomy or small country in Syria, and then the rest of Syria is fall to parts. And Iraq will never come back to the. I mean, taking over Ramadi, the Sunni Ramadi, doesn't mean yet that the future means 3 countries in Iraq: one Shia, one Kurdish, and one Sunni.
Yeah, so just before we're continuing to talk about Syria, first of all, Ali Waqid, thank you very much for being with us.